Star Ocean is a franchise I've been interested in ever since me and my sister first played Till the End of Time back when it came out in 2004. Back then, we loved Square Enix so much that we pretty much bought or rented anything that had their logo on it. We didn't get too far into it, but I knew I loved it, and years later, The Last Hope on PS3 came out, and I could not get enough of that game. I played it for months and months on end, and it really made me love the series. After finally gathering all these games together, I'm ready to explore the series and review each one of these 5 games, 2 spin-offs, a couple of remakes, and a remaster of a remake that's not even out yet. I hope you join me in exploring the history and games of this long-running series called Star Ocean. The original Star Ocean for the Super Famicom was developed by Tri-Ace. Tri-Ace was founded by former members of Wolf Team, the developers behind the Tales of series. Well, they used to be before they got merged with Bandai Namco Games. The 3 aces that make up the Tri-Ace name are Yoshiharu Gotanda, a programmer and now current president, Masaki Norimoto, a game designer, and Minoru Asanuma, who was the president but now no longer seems to work there. However, he did direct the first 2 Star Ocean games, so he's super important. They were unhappy with the way development went for Tales of Phantasia, so they left Wolf Team to create their own studio. They wanted to make a game akin to Phantasia, but with better gameplay mechanics and a deeper story. They also wanted to include multiple endings by making the choices the player makes in the game matter. Inspired by Star Trek, they decided to go with the space setting for the game, though once you actually play the game, the space stuff is put mostly in the background. Since the fantasy setting was so huge in the 90s with JRPGs, they wanted to make sure they didn't alienate RPG fans. The game mostly takes place on one planet with a couple of scenes in starships and various other space things. The game pushed the Super Famicom to the limits. It's 48 megabytes of data and included a special chip in the cartridge which helped it store even more data. Additionally, it also included a technology called the Flexible Voice Driver, which allowed for voice clips to be compressed and added into the game. Being released in 1996 at the tail end of the Super Famicom life cycle, the game was never released in North America and was stuck in Japan until 2007 when a remake for the Sony PSP was released. Luckily, there's a full English translation online that allows us to experience the first ever Star Ocean on the Super Famicom. I do have the original cartridge for the Super Famicom, but this is what it looks like, and I have no idea what's going on. So, this is my only option.
Captain's log, Stardate 346. Our ship has completed its mission of deep space investigation right on schedule.
Oh hey, there's that voice acting, and with lines straight out of Star Trek VI.
Shields! Shield the ship.
That's copyright up the wazoo. The game starts you out as 3 friends named Radix, Millie, and Dorn who patrol a small town called Clado. They soon find out that people in a town north of them are dying of a disease that turns them into stone. Millie's dad, a town healer, goes up to investigate what's happening, but that too just turns him into stone. Some healer this guy is. They hear of a rumor of a flower that can cure mystery disease on top of Mount Midorix, so they decide to travel up the mountain. Along the way, Dorn was dumb and touched a pigeon with the disease, leading him to contract it. The group hurries up the mountain with Dorn's condition getting worse and worse, until they eventually reach the flower. Just as they're about to grab it, 2 members of the Earth Federation beam down from the sky and basically kidnap them. They say, oh, we can't interfere with underdeveloped planets, and then straight up take these guys anyway. Look, I mean, do you? But that's just straight up redundant. Side note here, can we talk about the next dialogue icon? Side note here, can we talk about the next dialogue icon? It's a planet, that's pretty neat. Anyways, the Earthlings named Ronixus and Iria take the Felpool, oh, by the way, their race is called the Felpool, they're like cats or something, up to their ship, which is totally against the Underdeveloped Planet Treaty, by the way, and inform them that their species is dying due to the Lazonians, whoever they are. Apparently, they're a race who the Earthlings are at war with, but also apparently aren't, because 2 scenes later, they're all like, oh bro, it wasn't us, some dude was forcing us to battle you. Apparently they attacked because the Felpool have some special type of blood that could create a powerful weapon somehow. I don't know. Anyways, when Dorn finally succumbs to the disease, they run a test on him to help find a cure, but they only find out that the source of the disease would have the only cure they could make. The disease apparently comes from a literal demon king named Asmodeus who was killed 300 years ago on their planet. This game takes place in the future, so you can bet your bottom dollar they have time travel, so they travel back in time 300 years to stop Asmodeus. However, Iria is dumb and trips on the way in, which somehow leaves the groups completely separated. Now they have the goal of getting everyone back together again and saving the Felpool race by destroying Asmodeus, picking up some new party members on the way. This is pretty stellar stuff, but we'll get back to the story later. For now, let's talk about some game mechanics. Just like Tales of Phantasia they worked on beforehand, this game is an action RPG. Battles are random and take place on a 2.5D plane. However, unlike most action RPGs, you can't move around freely, which just feels weird. Instead, you press the A button, choose who you want to target, and the character automatically runs up to the target and hits. What's really weird though is when you're targeting, time doesn't stop. You can easily get hit when you're trying to strategize who you're targeting, and some enemies hit like a truck. When you're trying to protect your allies, you instead either get killed or the ally gets killed. The only time the enemies are paused is when you're in the scroll wheel menu, which only ever happens for items or running away from battles. And even though there's more options, they never unlocked for me, so I'm not really sure what they do. There's also a chance at blocking, though I think it's random. There's no button for it. I think it uses the evade stat to determine whether or not you block, but that's just pure guessing on my part, considering the manual's in Japanese, and I don't read Japanese. To make the game more exciting than just pressing A million times, the developers added specials you can perform by pressing the L and R button. There's 2 specials you can equip to each button: long range and short range. Just as the name suggests, the long range specials are done when the target is far away, and vice versa for the short range. Each character gains new specials every few level ups, so there's always something new to equip to characters. Some characters, however, don't get regular specials and instead learn magics such as Earthgrave and Ice Needles. Unlike regular specials, these mages aren't limited to only 4 and can use whichever spell they want at any time using the scroll wheel. Since you can only control one character at a time, the other characters are controlled by AI, and you can only use the main character, Radix. You can control the AI's battle strategies by setting their tactics. Character tactics are specific to which class you are, such as the melee fighters getting tactics like use all your strength and protect allies, while magic users get concentrate on healing or give us the advantage. These tactics are useful when you want to keep an ally safe or when you're trying to conserve your MP. Unfortunately though, this isn't perfect. When there's only one enemy on the screen, your allies will more than likely just stand there and watch while you're completely mollywop the enemy. And if you put on protect yourself as a tactic, your ally just stands there even though there's multiple enemies on the screen. Like yeah, you technically are protecting yourself, but you're not helping. There's also the problem that if you die as the main character, you literally can't do anything. You have to watch your teammates mess everything up while you just sit there dead and lifeless. All you can do is use the run option on the scroll wheel menu, and that's it. And the allies will not resurrect you with the life bottles or a spell. They just let your lifeless corpse sit there, and in extreme cases, you get a game over, and if you didn't save, you're shit out of luck. You could have a second player join you in battles, or at least I think you can, but I can't do that, so I'm stuck with the shit AI. But honestly, that's not too much of a problem though, considering how easy enemies are sometimes, especially the bosses. Don't get me wrong, some enemies can kill you with a single well-timed hit, but others are complete pushovers who die with a couple of whacks. Like with the early enemies, some of them can't even hit you if you repeatedly go after them with hits. Even some later enemies have this problem too. Magic enemies and enemies with armor can be very tough, but they don't show up as often until the final dungeon. You have to play for at least 8 hours until you see your first magic user enemy, and it's weird considering that's the first time you get a magic user on your team too. Yeah, maybe they planned that. But the enemies that pose the least threat most of the time are the bosses, unfortunately. Some you just have to keep beating at until they die, and they hardly do anything back at you. Like there was boss descriptions in the walkthrough I was going to that just said press A multiple times, and you win. Then there's some bosses like the wolf spirits who have the potential to kill you, like they did to poor Joshua here. But as long as you keep pounding on them, they're barely a challenge. The only challenge to the bosses half the time are the enemies they throw in to make it a challenge. Such as when you're facing the pirate boss called Velkins for some reason, having some jello and a smaller pirate helping him. They have to put more enemies in just to make him a challenge. Or maybe I just overleveled. That's a huge possibility. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just get back into the story for now. Radix and Iria, now stuck without their allies, must traverse Roke, oh yeah, that's their planet name by the way, to find them. They go into Radix's old town only to discover it completely different. I mean, go figure, since they're 300 years in the past. If you go back outside the village after a couple story scenes, you'll see the first instance of a long-running series mechanic called Private Actions. Now I know that sounds dirty, but trust me, it's tame. It's just a way for you to get to know your allies better. You press the Y button just outside of a town, and your allies will all walk in without you. It's up to you to find them and talk to them for an extra bit of dialogue. The problem is, though, you have to find them. They're usually nowhere to be found, and when you do find them, it's just 1 or 2 lines of dialogue with hardly any story additions or new traits for the characters. In all honesty, it's not worth it, but if you're invested in these characters and want to search for them, by all means. I did do it anytime I could, but if I didn't find anyone in my crew within 5 minutes, I just gave up. It's dumb, so we move on to the next town, which used to be cool, but now is hot. And I'm not making that up. This town is where we learn about yet another game mechanic, this time being skills. Skills, not to be confused with specials, are abilities you can level up with skill points, or SP. Each town has a shop that you can buy them at, each with a different type and a different level. Buying skills, though, is really annoying since they don't show you how much money you have and they don't show what skill sets you already have. So if you don't remember, you'll be sitting through this super slow dialogue about how you already have this skill type. Here's a solution. Just let me know before I click it. These skills can range anywhere from regular stat increases to buffs in battle like armor piercing, all the way to writing books and music. A very interesting mix of things. The problem is, when I boosted stat skills, I never really felt more powerful or felt like anything changed. The only skills that I could visibly see were the buffs in battle, such as when I boosted my armor piercing all the way up for one of the later dungeons. Every time I hit an enemy with armor, a little skill graphic popped up indicating that the skill was in fact being useful and being used. I'm still not sure what the books and music skills do, since I couldn't even find the items to actually utilize them, but there were a couple of skills in that style I did do something with. Like, the top lines of skills are for identifying items you find with a question mark next to them. These question mark items are regular items, armor, swords, herbs, food, anything really. I just don't understand how the game determines if you can identify something or not. Like here, my identify level is maxed out, but I literally can't identify the item. It just doesn't make any sense. Some skills I have absolutely no idea what they do. Like this one. What does that even mean? Oh, and this is how you unlock the running feature in the game. You actually have to buy the ability to run, and then unlock it with a skill point. That's pretty stupid. But I had to do it because look at how slow this little dude walks. I can't deal with that this entire game, there's no shot. In all honesty though, these skills really set the game apart from other 16-bit RPGs. Giving the player the ability to cook and craft items is really ahead of its time, even if the systems are really complicated to learn. Man, I really wish I could read this manual. I think that would help a lot. The town of Hot is also where we meet our first potential ally. His name is Caius. He's a loudmouth longsword wielder and he has a wolf tail. First cat people, now wolf people. That's pretty cool, I guess. He joins you for a mission to get an item for someone that's in a town across the mountain, and then you have to come back to the town that you're in right now. Yeah, get ready for a lot of back and forth in this game because they just love to pad out the game for time's sake. Earlier, I called Caius a potential ally, and that's because you can choose whether or not he stays with you. If you don't choose him, you can get other characters, and if you do choose him, those characters will either be completely out of your story, or you won't be able to add them until later in your game. I really appreciate this mechanic. It makes every choice you make matter, and can change the story each playthrough in subtle ways. I did choose to keep Caius though, so a later character named Ashley won't appear for me. The next mission is to kill pirates so you can cross the ocean to the bigger continent and potentially meet up with your friends. This pirate quest marks where you really need to start grinding. Where the problem lies though is that all the enemies in this cave are pushovers except for the pirates who can kill you in basically one shot. So in order to beat the pirates with ease, you must really level up, making you very overleveled for the regular enemies and at the same level as the higher echelon of enemies. This problem persists with the entire game, making me go crazy with grinding, but only for the strong enemies who rarely appear. Once you finally take out the pirates, it's time to move on from this small 3-town island. For now anyways, we'll be back here because this game loves to backtrack. The next part of the game honestly feels like it took a detour for 5 hours before finally getting back to the main narrative. For some reason we have to go to this town called Astral. I can only assume it's to find our allies, but the game doesn't really make it clear. By this time, traveling on the world map is just getting tedious with the amount of enemies the game throws at you. Every few steps is another battle, and since this world map is more in a style similar to Zelda games rather than a typical JRPG, it gets really annoying to navigate real quick. Like in this one section, I'm supposed to find a temple in the middle of the desert. I walked around for at least 30 minutes trying to find this place. It took so long I had to stop recording because I didn't want to waste space on my computer just me running around in this game. When I did finally find it, the only way in is a path that's just hidden enough for me to miss it, and my god, I did miss it. Multiple times. The map on the lower screen does absolutely nothing to help either, considering it doesn't even show the path you're on, nor indicate which direction you're headed. It's utterly useless, but that's just early game design for you. On your way to Astral, you stop by a city called Tataroi, which has a coliseum inside. This side quest distraction thing is quite possibly the most boring thing you could do in this game. It's literally just one-on-one battles with extremely boring cutscenes showing the next challenger in between. The battles are so boring too. There's no challenge to it, it's just pressing A over and over again. I couldn't do this more than a couple of times. I was completely tapped out of my care, especially because the items they give you for winning are basically useless. Like, I got a clarinet for winning the D rank cup. Wow, a clarinet, thanks, what am I, fucking Squidward? And the music is just pain-inducing. It's way too pain-inducing for the amount of time it takes for you to complete a match. That's where I drew the line. And you know what, speaking of music, it's kinda not great. I mean, the songs themselves are okay, but there's only like 10 of them tops. Each town you go into has pretty much the same exact music, making the towns feel way too similar. Especially because most of them have the same look, and most of them have a dock too. It's way too easy to get confused. The music really only changes when you're in a town with a castle in it, and that's only like 4 out of the 12 or so in the game. There's only like 1 or 2 songs that I really liked, otherwise it was really disappointing. I can't blame them though, as I said before, this game had voice acting put in, so the music had to take a hit since they couldn't put more data on the cart. In all honesty though, the voice acting adds a lot to this game, so I can appreciate what they were going for here. In Astral, you meet Fear, another potential character who can't join my party because her and Caius have some beef. What's the beef? I'm honestly not too sure. Caius did something wrong, or something like that, so now Fear's mad at him. He straight up calls her a bitch though, and that's not something you get away with easily. Things don't really matter in the story for a while. I mean, Fear does get a doppelganger, but we kill it, and then she said, thanks, but I ain't coming with you, so we move on. That's really it in Astral for now, so we move on to the temple I was talking about earlier, which, according to my walkthrough, is optional. But it definitely doesn't feel optional since a major item in this game is housed there, called the Eye of Truth. I mean, you can't get it now anyways, because story reasons, but still, the enemies in the first half of the dungeon are pretty much the same level you are now, so why wouldn't you go through this? As you know, I did get lost on the way there, but I did eventually find it. And we run into Joshua, our first magic user. He's cool, but this dungeon isn't. It's got balls that teleport you where you don't want to go. It's irritating and not so much of a challenge, more of a nuisance. Plus, there's more grinding in this dungeon, like 2 hours worth, all because of these stupid armor knights and mage enemies. Yeah, I know, more overpowered enemies, it's great. After we clear out the wolf spirits I was talking about earlier, we walk into the inner sanctum only for the guardians to be like, nah, we ain't giving you the Eye of Truth, you should leave here and never come back. The joke's on them though, because we do come back later, and they fucking just let us in, so I don't know why they warned us not to come back. For now, we're off to yet another continent, or we would be if a starship didn't fall on the planet. Really slowly. This starship is one we see earlier in the game before we travel back in time, and for whatever reason our party wants us to head all the way back to the first island to take a look at it. Radix said it best right here. After coming this far, because the only way to get back there is to walk the entire length back. Through all the caves, all the paths, all the dead ends you forgot about, all the mountains, everything. And you have to do this. Even if you head to the next port town and go to the ships, they make you go back to the first island. And the enemies don't get tougher, so you're going around one-shotting everything every 5 seconds because the random battles never end. This game would have really benefited from seeing enemies in the overworld. It would make backtracking so much easier. And I really wouldn't have that much of a problem with it if the enemies just scaled in level with you, but I guess that's just too much to ask for this early of a game. Once you finally get to the starship after backtracking for 30 minutes, a 2-minute cutscene plays, and Iria says, "Let's continue our mission, ha 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 ha." and you have to walk the entire way back. All the random battles, all the mountains, all the random paths that lead to nowhere, all the stupid caves, all the stupid everything, all the ships that you have to go on, and you have to pay for those ships for some reason. You have to do it all back over again because we had to go see the ship for some reason. We cried about it for 2 seconds, and then let's turn around. After 5 long hours of dungeon crawling, backtracking, grinding, skill increases, and boss battling, we finally meet up with Millie on a new continent, but not Ronixus because he went off with some woman, and that makes Iria hella jealous. What really made me angry though is that Millie's the same level as when she left the group like 6 or 7 hours ago. Does the game really expect me to use her now and grind her up with the levels of the rest of us? That just doesn't make any sense. That's stupid. What did you and Ronixus do for that entire time? Nothing? We killed pirates, we met angels, in a fucking desert temple, and you and Ronixus were like, yeah, well, they'll be here any minute, fuck it, well, they're looking for us, we'll bull hard right now. And you even run slow. Dumbass. I tried grinding with her in the party for 10 minutes, and I just don't have all the time in the world for this. Goodbye, Millie. After a side quest helping out Joshua's old friend, we walk to the town Ronixus and Marvel are at, Marvel being the woman he was with. I still don't know why they left Millie alone in some town that she's never been to before, but I guess whatever. Finally, that the party's all back together now, we discuss a plan on how to get into the demon world and kill Asmodeus once and for all. I kind of forgot that was our main mission after all the backtracking we had to do. Wow, looks like the characters also forgot that was our main mission since they discussed the plan for all of 5 seconds before passing out at the bar. These are our heroes, ladies and gentlemen. When they finally awaken, they decide they must ask the King of Van for help. So let's walk to another town. Yippee. We speak to the king and he allows us to help him. Like, okay, I thought we came here for your help, not the other way around, but okay. He sticks us in a trial to prove our worth. We do the trial and he gives us an emblem signifying our worthiness. The trial being just like a little dungeon thing. It's barely anything of note. Apparently, the only way to get into the demon world is to get all 4 emblems for each kingdom. And at this point, I thought, well, I guess this is like a Final Fantasy Crystal situation, and we'll have to scour dungeons for these kings for their emblems. But, no, that's not it at all. They kind of just each hand them to you. For example, after this kingdom gives you their emblem, you have to go to a kingdom you've never been to before. So I'm at least expecting a dungeon to get to this thing, especially with how hyped up this kingdom was earlier in the game. Apparently it's supposed to be like a bad place or something. But no, you walk in the castle and the king's like, oh damn, you passed the van trial? Here you go, my man. Gee, thanks, king, I guess. You know, even though you force people inside their house, you seem like a pretty swell dude. Oh yeah, and this town also has Santa Claus in it. He sells Santa boots for like $1 million and the Triace logo. That's a lot of money. Jesus Christ. The Moor Kingdom all the way back on the first continent is the only one that has you do something to get their emblem. Luckily though, the ship at Sylvalent takes you there for free, so you don't have to walk back this time, which would have been the 3rd time in a row. Their castle is overrun with demons from the demon world, so it's up to you to stop them because apparently their knights are complete failures, I guess. The castle being overrun though is just one little section because the entire trial to get the emblem takes place on one map. Nice. Finally, there's the Astral Emblem, which is another, hey, I'm here, okay, thanks for the emblem, see ya. Finally, after getting all of the emblems, which took a lot longer than you think because of the constant walking back and forth between these places, the Von King tells you to go back to the temple you were specifically told by the spirits not to go back into. And yes, there's more backtracking. What, are they just gonna accept us back into the temple? Oh, that is what they do? Okay. Once inside the temple in her sanctum, it does not look like a temple at all. In fact, it looks like a starship. The enemies in here though are the toughest by far. Most are easily defeated with a couple of swings, but you'll take a lot of damage. However, this one type of enemy called the flak forms made my blood boil. When I first walked into this place, they were my first encounter and they completely wiped out my team. They have the highest defense stat in the entire game and can only be hurt by magic or specials. But since the AI is so bad at their jobs, they whack at them and do 0 damage while I'll try to use all my specials and the team gets obliterated. And even when I do beat them, I'm pretty much out of my MP while they have full MP because they don't really do anything to help me. After 2 hours of grinding, I went back in to face them again and the same thing happened. I almost put my controller down and called it there, but something told me to keep going. So I did, and that battle must have been a fluke because I managed to finish the entire dungeon with little to no problems. Except I did save every 5 seconds because I didn't want to lose all my progress. That would have been the death of me and this video would have never came out. Believe it or not, this dungeon made you go back and forth, which made it even more difficult because the amount of enemies that would show up. You had to go to one side of the dungeon and then you had to go all the way back to the other side just to go back to the first side. Meanwhile, you have enemies depleting all your resources, constantly showing up, and this isn't even the worst part of the game yet. So you beat the boss in the Sanctum, you get the Eye of Truth, for some reason you see a map of Earth, and it's finally time to open the gate to the demon world. But of course you have to walk all the way back to Sylvant because it doesn't teleport you there. No, you have to start from the temple, you have to go all the way back to the second continent, and blah blah blah. Oh my god. Oh yeah, and this town straight up explodes. It's a big middle finger from Asmodeus right there. Jumping into the demon world, you see the Crimson Shield, a character who's killed a lot of families in this game, because Caius, Fear, Joshua, and Marvel all hold a grudge against this guy. And apparently he was possessed the whole time anyway. He's actually a chill-ass dude. But, you know, we kill him, so. This fight is ridiculously easy, though. You quite literally press A over and over again, and that's it. He's dead. And the fight happens twice because some reason, I don't know, and I just kicked his ass again, and you just press A over and over. And I do mean I kicked his ass, considering my teammates literally just stood there and watched both times. Except for Joshua. He used his spells. He helped. Thank you, Joshua. Upon defeating him, you get the Force Sword, which is basically just a lightsaber. It triples your attack stat, though it doesn't actually feel like it, considering you do the same damage to every enemy that you've done before. And going into the next dungeon, it doesn't even feel like you're more powerful. So, didn't really help at all. Back to the demon world we go, because the Crimson Shield was only Asmodeus' lackey. Now it's time for the real deal. When you get far enough into the demon world, you stumble across a laboratory, and the party's like, "What? This ain't no demon shit, this is technology." Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth, man. Yeah, that's right, all this demon shit was a bunch of bullshit because Asmodeus is just a dude who knows technology, and the technology's from ancient technological race from the Earth. Yeah, that's right, all this demon talk was a bunch of bullshit. Asmodeus is just some dude who knows technology, and the technology is from an ancient technological race who died many, many years ago, who evidently came from Earth, from the continent of Mu, which is why we saw that map of Earth earlier, and it's also a real theoretical continent of the past here, but honestly, who cares about that shit? Let's go kick some Asmodeus ass. Or should I say, kick some Asmodeus. That was good. I like that one. Again, this boss is just a giant pushover, but he looks cool as fuck. You kill him, and it looks like the end of the game. Dorn's back alive, Radix and Millie are chilling in their newly revitalized planet, and things are going well. That is until Ronexus' commander tells them that he's going to another planet to kill the guy controlling the Lazonians, whose name is Driver Vorst and lives on the planet of Fargit. I really love that this is all coming at the end of the game. This Jai guy is a science project gone wrong. He was created by experimenting with human genetics, and he just wants to kill everyone because reasons. I don't know, he's a bad guy. So the gang's all back together, yes, even from the past, who now know entirely too much about the future and will probably be scarred forever. So they all travel to Fargit for their final mission, and I hate this part. I hate this part so much. The enemies here are the worst part of the entire game. The soldiers are just way too powerful, and the mages can kill you in a second with their atomic bombs. No joke, they're atomic bombs. And the Medusa heads have a 95% chance of turning you into stone, which when you do, as the main character, you're basically screwed. Even with the stone charm on, which is supposed to prevent stoning, I still get stoned, and my team dies. And the best part about this is that there's no turning back to grind up levels. There's nowhere to go. You're stuck here with the most annoying difficult enemies in the entire game. So what did I do? I turned on a no encounters sheet and ran through the entire dungeon without any troubles. I felt on top of the world. Well, until the final boss, that is. The final boss should be easy. He should be. His first form is a pushover. Again, pressing A and A over and over again. But his second form, that's where it gets tough. This thing is way too destructive and can wipe the team almost immediately. All he has to do is one move and you could instantly go from full health to 0. I tried this battle out multiple times and they all had the same outcome, and I can't even grind because I die to the normal enemies here. And the music for the final boss isn't even good, so I didn't even have fun. All I could do was turn on a couple of little cheats here and there and, you know, just a little bit of cheating, and I could finally beat the game. It showed endings for everyone. Apparently Marvel and Joshua are siblings, and I sat there with a blank expression on my face, but I did it. I did it, and I feel proud. And I didn't even have to cheat at all. This game has many flaws, whether it be the constant backtracking, the lackluster enemy balancing, or the skills that made little sense. But it did have character. It definitely wasn't all bad. The battle system was really fun, even if some of the boss fights were just pressing A over and over again. The specials added a nice variety of moves, and the skills really made the game stand out. What other JRPGs at the time can you think of that had smithing and writing in it as a mechanic? There's also some things I didn't touch on, like personality traits that change character stats and what skills you can acquire, but I hardly know how that works considering there's little to no information I could find explaining it. The little voice acting that was in the game was really nice and makes it stick out from other early RPGs. The music was also pretty good, even if I dug a little bit too hard on it. Since they opted to recycle the same music for towns, dungeons, and the world maps, some of the songs got a bit too repetitive, but a majority of them were a nice listen. I know I was really hard on Star Ocean, but it's definitely a solid game with a lot of heart poured into it. If you like JRPGs from the time, then you might as well try this one out too, just for the novelty of the thing. But for now, we're going to move on to Star Ocean the second story to see what that has in store for us. If you like this video, I'd appreciate it if you like and subscribe and comment. I put a lot of time and effort into this video. This is probably the thing I've put my most heart and soul into, so I'd really appreciate you guys if you just comment down if you like the video, whatever. I don't ask for that a lot. This is probably the only time I've ever asked for it, so I just appreciate it if you do that for me, and I will create more content for you guys. Until then, I'll see you later.